Come on in, welcome to my home. Let's talk about your reading space. First thing I can tell you is that anyone will tell you that you can read anywhere, and that is relatively true. But what's important is that it has to be a space which works for you. Your reading space needs to be a space where you are comfortable, where you feel like you want to actually hang out there and read. So how do we do that? One of the things that I see a lot are people talking about reading nooks. Reading nooks are really cool because they give you a great place for you to actually read. Then people also talk about book nooks. Book nooks are actually really cool because it gives you a space for you to keep your books. Here's where I'm going to warn you. Book nooks and reading nooks are not necessarily the same. A book nook, like I said, is a place for you to keep your books. The reading nook is where you're actually going to read your books. Do they need to be in the same spot? No, they don't. In fact, my mom and I had this discussion where she said, well, what I'd like to have is a book nook where I could then, once I'm done reading a book, I could then pick up another book. And my question was, how often does that actually happen? And I'm going to bet you've never thought about that before. How often have you ever put down a book and been like, now that I'm finished reading this book, I'm going to read this other book off my reading shelf? I never have. That has never once happened to me. In fact, what normally happens once I finish reading a book, I then go on to do something else before I pick up my next book. So the first thing I'm going to tell you about your reading space is that it does not need to be where all of your books are. It needs to be wherever you feel comfortable. For me, the one thing that my reading space really does need to have is Wi-Fi access most of the time. Because if I have sat down, I am an e-reader. I read from my e-reader all the time, so a lot of times I will check from my e-reader to see if I have the book downloaded on it, that sort of thing. So Wi-Fi access is important to me. It might not be important to you. There are some basics for having good reading space, and that would be a nice comfortable chair, a light that you can actually read your book with, whether it be an e-reader or it be an actual physical book. And, well, sort of that's really all you need. But you might want a bit more, and this is where things become a little different. Because one of the things that I have found is, I need space. I mean, you have to think about what kind of reader are you? Are you a sit-up straight with your feet on the floor reader? Are you a put your feet up kind of reader? Are you a slouch and read? Or are you all of those things? Because some people find that they want to have a nice big chair to read in. Some people want to have a nice cozy tight chair to read in. Some people want to be almost cocooned in whatever they're reading. That's up to you. I have found that I'm a person who reads in all of those positions. It just depends upon my mood. But one of the things that I do know that I want is I want to have space to put down whatever I'm reading or to pick up something that I have with me, and that's the next thing which is important. When you read, what do you have around you? Do you have a drink? Do you have snacks? Do you have, I don't know, whatever? Is your phone near you? Because all of those things are going to dictate what your reading space actually is. Because if you need those things, you want to have them within arm's reach. And this is something else which I've found that very few people talk about when they're setting up their reading space. Are you right or left-handed? For you, this is probably reversed, but this is my right hand, left hand. Are you right or left-handed? Because that's going to make a difference. If you are reading, say, like the script that I'm reading here, and I go to reach for my drink, I'm going to probably reach with my right hand. However, if my drink is to the left of me, that's weird, so then I'd have to, awkward. Now, that can be its own challenge because your space might not be able to be set up for that. I know where I read, which is usually in my living room, and also when I read in my bedroom, my space is set up for the stand to be on my left side, which, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it is something to think about. Then the next thing to think about is the height of your stand. I've heard that your stand is only supposed to be at your armrest height or lower. I'm clumsy, I'll admit it. I did that once. I had my stand just, I think it was 2 inches below my armrest, and you know what the first thing that I did? As I went to get my cup of hot chocolate, I hit the armrest. I did. And of course, hot chocolate splashed, not a whole lot, but a little, so think about that. Think about the height. I personally think that your stand should be just about the armrest height, so that way as you're reaching for whatever it is you're getting, you can reach for it and not hit things. That's important. When it comes to snacks while you're reading, I can do a whole video if you'd like me to about reading snacks, because that's its own thing, because I personally panic when somebody's like, yes, I'm eating this messy whatever as I'm reading, and I'm like, oh, your book, your fingers are all, I have friends who go to quilting bees or those sort of things, and they do things like eat chocolate cake, and that freaks me out. So yeah, think about what you're eating and what you're going to do and where you're going to put it, because that's really important. Now, the next thing which I also love to think about is, are you a person who likes to bundle up while you're reading? Right now, it is, for you, is it the end of January? I think it's the end of January for you, or the 1st of February. So that way you want to think about, are you a person who likes to have a blanket you can throw over you? I like to have a blanket I can throw over me, so that way if I get cold I can put it over me, if I get warm I can take it off, but you're going to want to be able to get that blanket quickly. And the thing about this is storage is really important, because it's not just putting your food or whatever and your phone down beside you. It's also, are you carrying this book, e-reader, whatever, with you when you go someplace? So if you're not, and this is the spot where you're going to be reading, you're going to want to be able to put that item away, say in whatever it is that you can quickly get to it and sit down and start reading. I like storage. Storage is good. I have storage right next to me. I have a dresser right next to me that I can put my e-reader in. Usually I don't. I'll just sit it out so that way as I sit down again I can pick it back up. But you do you. That's important. You have to make sure that it's comfortable for you. Next thing is sound. I am not a person who really enjoys listening to the sound of silence. No, when I'm reading, what I tend to do, and I've done this a lot recently, I tend to put on a couple of things. One is I'll put on ambiance sound. You can find ambiance for like reading ambiance, or I'll put on music which is known as lo-fi, which is sort of like light background music, which generally does not have any sort of words to it. Now, what I have been doing is I have been picking out music that matches the book. That's been sort of interesting, or ambiance that matches the book. One of the things that I have noticed a lot is a lot of these ambiance reading kind of videos, they have rain. And I kept wondering, well, why would you have rain when you're reading a book? And then it came to me, well, alright, so I did some research. Yeah, everything which I researched is linked down below in the description. But it came to me because on a rainy day, what's better to do than to read? Oh, there's nothing like reading as you have a crackling fire. Oh yeah. Yes, there is. There is a lot of videos that have the sound of a crackling fire and rain, and to me that's one of the best things that you can do when reading. It just makes you feel like you're reading really, really well, I guess. Yeah. So we know that we want warmth, we know that we want comfort, we know that we want light. This is one in which I didn't even think of. When you're reading, I've been told, and my research says, that you want to use warm white light to read by, because the warm white light to read by, they say, is better. I've found that mine goes either way. I'll either use warm white or daylight. I tend to have a tendency not to like the cool white, because I think the cool white is sort of glaring on my eyes, but you have to do you. In fact, right now as I'm sitting here, my window is facing forward and my light is coming in on me, so I'm sort of squinting, I realize that. But yeah, figure out what kind of light works best for you. People are saying that warm white is nice. Let's talk windows while you're reading. Having windows in the place where you're reading can be really, really nice. It can give you bright light, it can give you a lot of just happiness and joy. Yet, having the window face you while you're reading can be its own problem. I personally have found that when I'm reading, I like to have the window either behind me or to my side. If it's in front of me, even if I have a bright light behind me so I can see my book really well, I still have a tendency for the light to block out my book, and I don't really like that. So I personally like to have the window to my side or to my back. Now let's talk about scent. Can you have scents while you're reading? Yeah, scent is really good. Scent can also set the mood, because one of the fun things really to do is, if you know a little bit about your book, you can set the mood by the scent that you have. Now let's talk about where I have my own personal paranoias, I guess you'd say. A lot of people like to use candles to set their mood when they're reading. I personally do not. Here's why. When I'm reading, can just get so caught up in the book, I forget about paying attention to everything, and that candle is sort of burning without me paying attention to it. Or that they have those diffusers, which you light a candle underneath it, still a candle burning. And I don't like the idea of having something burning that I am not paying any attention to. So if I'm going to use a diffuser, I'll use an electric diffuser, or I'll just use an electric diffuser. There's no two ways about it. I would love to hear from you who are window seat people, because I've seen all these Instagram perfect window seats or window reading seat benches things where it looks really pretty, but how often do you use them, and how comfortable are they? I personally cannot imagine sitting in a window seat that's really super comfortable for me to read in for long periods of time. I think they're really nice, but I've found from my own experience, and this is my own personal thing where I'd love to hear from you what yours is, that sitting in a chair or on a sofa is way better than sitting in the window seat. Now, the comparable thing would be reading in bed. However, I like to read on the chair or on the sofa instead of reading in bed, because I just don't find that all that compatible with the way that I read. When it also comes to light, I've found that one of the things which I do not like to do is reading in a dark room. What do I mean by that? You're like, well, the light's on so you can see your book. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. But I'm not just looking at the book. Occasionally I'll look up, and I don't like to be in a spot where the only light is just on my book, and in the room there is no other light, especially this happens at night. I do like to have some ambient light in the room, maybe a light or a lamp which is on at a dimmer light level than what I'm reading by, so that way the room is not completely dark, because a dark room just really isn't all that cool to me. You might love reading in the dark with just the light for your book. That's really fine, because if it works for you, it works for you. When I'm looking up from reading, one of the things I do like to have, I like to have a clock, so that I can actually see what time it is, because yes, I'll do things like, I'll just sit down and read for 15 minutes, but I need to know how long 15 minutes are, how long that is, and I also don't want to have to keep looking at my watch, which I'm not wearing a watch right now, but I don't have to pull out my phone, but I do want to be able to just look up from my book and see what time it is. So having a clock that I can easily read is important. Back in the days when I used to teach, one of the things that I did where I taught, there was a running track, and of course people walked on the running track, but I also have been known to read while I'm walking. I found that I did this because I knew the running track like really, really well, so I could read and walk at the same time. Don't always suggest that. However, you can very easily do this on a exercise bike, or you can do this on a treadmill where you set a nice pace and then you just read while you're walking. It is a great way to get those extra steps in. I do like that. Right now I don't have access to a treadmill that I enjoy, or even a bike that I enjoy. I'm working on that. but it is another way where you can combine two things of reading and also doing some form of exercise. I'm not a person who likes to eat and read, like having a full meal and read. A snack is fine, but full meal, no. But exercising and reading, that can be pretty cool. So, we've got our comfy chair, we've got our nice audio, we have our nice light, warmth, something to eat and snack on. Are we ready to read? Generally, yeah. Now, a lot of people have asked me, do I put in ear pods when I read? Are they even called ear pods anymore? Are they called earbuds? Do I put in earbuds when I read? No, because I do like to be able to hear the ambiance of the room. I don't want to be so disconnected that I'm not within that sort of thing, but you might want to just have the earbuds in and just be listening to whatever it is that makes it really cool. Oh, I have been thinking about if I know more about a book and I can put together a soundtrack for that book. Let me know if you want me to do that sometime for a book. That would be sort of fun to do as you're reading. But I do want to stress, if you're doing music, don't have music that you find yourself going to be singing to, because the next thing you know, you're paying more attention to the music than you are to the book that you're reading. And I am one of these big fans of really paying attention to my book, because I can picture what's happening in the book. And so it's just, I really like that. I like that comfort. I like that ability to be able to enjoy myself. Now, we've talked about me reading in this room, usually right there because that's where my couch is, but I also read in bed. Now, if you read in bed, once again, you still have the same things. Where's your stand that you're putting your stuff on? Are you a person who sits up while you read? Do you read on your side, or do you read on your back with your book over your head? I personally do not read on my back with my book over my head because, well, I have been known to fall asleep and smack a book into my face. With the e-reader, I really don't want to do that. Don't want to do that at all. So instead, I either read on my side or I prop up pillows so that I am reading that way. Now, here's something which I am horrible at: reading posture. If you are doing really well with your reading posture, you're going to try to get your book so that you are not looking down at your book. You want to be so that your head is up and you are reading straight forward. Is that practical? Yeah, sometimes. I mean, that's a good posture kind of thing. However, I've found that no, I'll hold my book down and read it while I'm reading it. So yeah, think about your good posture. Think about, are you in a situation where you can then, make sure that you are comfortable, that you aren't contorting your body? Do you get up every little while to stretch? If you find that you read for hours and hours on end, and when you're done reading you are stiff and cranky and everything needs to be stretched, you might consider your reading posture. Reading posture is important so that way you aren't hurting yourself. You aren't making things so that when you are done reading, it's just awkward. But that all depends upon what you do for you. How does it work for you? My mom, she's a person who she likes to read. I think she reads the most on her sofa, which has an ottoman, because if you have a chair, an ottoman is a great way to have a way to put your legs up or put your legs down. You can move it out of the way, you can put it right there. It's just comfortable, but make sure that whatever you have around you, your temperature needs to be comfortable. I found that I do not, that's the thing which I should have put in earlier, I do not read outside simply because I don't really like bugs as I'm reading. No. So I have a tendency to read inside with my really highly curated, or I set the whole mood for what I'm doing. Everything in here is totally set up so that when I'm reading, I can read for hours, and I do. I read for hours upon hours. And if you're interested, you can join our book club, which I think that first video will be somewhere over here, where you can check that book club out. Every month we will do a new book. But if you want to know more about reading, want me to talk about how I read, why I read, let me know down in the comments. This time I'd like to thank these wonderful people who helped me decide to make a video all about reading and how I do my reading setup. You could become part of that group too. You would get early access to these videos. They also get their names at the end of the video, as you can see on that card. And then they get early access and all those fun things. You can join it through Patreon or channel members. Either one of those really helps support this channel. If you have ideas for books that you would like to see me read, let me know, because I'm always up for a new good book. And I hope I get to see you again the next time you stop by.